Welcome back. I'm Juan Williams. The State of Black America, 2007, the National Urban League Special Report on the Portrait of the African American Male, comes at a critical time for discussions of how the Black American man can best advance. Dr. Silas Lee, thank you so much for giving us this time.
Thank you.
Dr. Lee, you're a pollster, but for this 2007 State of Black America report from the National Urban League, you wrote a chapter on civic engagement. What was the point?
The point was that people have to understand their role in society, the contributions they can make to society, and how democracy is extremely dependent upon people being engaged in their respective communities and voting. If you want to engage in a revolutionary process, vote and be involved in your respective communities, because we cannot allow democracy to be succumbed by or poisoned by many people who want to stop the progress and initiatives that ensure full participation and equality. And that's why civic engagement is an ongoing process and activity that requires diligence and monitoring.
Well, in this case, what did you find for your part, your chapter in this report on Black America in 2007? Are Black Americans engaged in the larger political process?
Yes and no. Unfortunately, after the Voting Rights Act, yes, we experienced a peak in participation, but however, recently we have witnessed a decline in participation, and that is due to the fact that many people do not understand the correlation between voting participation and civic engagement and how it will impact them directly in their local communities, how it will impact the quality of their own personal lives. And we live in this highly individualistic society where people still do not feel that politics equal a policy and hits them directly. So therefore, they do not see the connection between politics, policy, and engagement. And I think elected officials and institutions must be more aggressive, more creative, more inclusionary in reference to how we inform people and engage people. The traditional, antiquated strategies of the past no longer effective.
Well, this is interesting. And does it break down by class? Do you see more affluent Black people voting more, lower income Black people voting less?
You know, what's interesting is that it's quite pervasive. We cannot necessarily isolate it by class and various demographic groups. So many people do not see the connection between policies and politics. They feel distrusted. They distrust the process. They don't feel that politics and policies have been responsive to their needs.
So they're alienated from politicians in general.
They're alienated from the institution of government, not realizing that our survival is dependent upon the institutions of government responding to the needs of people.
Now, when you hear people talking about Black men today in Nashville, all through Tennessee, is it as a problem, or do people see the positive, the potential power that would come from better educated Black men contributing to the economic vitality of the region?
I think you hear and see both. In particular, the good that I hear and I see, I think about my Urban League Young Professionals. And this is a group of dynamic young people, and there are a large percentage of those are male. And just this past weekend, they had a home buyers club at Vanderbilt University, and they talked about all the wonderful things that you would expect for that age group of 25 to 40 who are thinking of their first-time homes to be concerned about. They talked about predatory lending. They talked about insurance. They talked about maintaining a home. That's a positive thing, that they are being very intentional about how they spend their money and where they spend their money. I think about my son. I have an 18-year-old son. I look at him and his friends who are about to graduate from high school and enter college, very encouraged, very hopeful. I think of some of the disadvantaged youth of our community. So I hear and I see both.
Now, when you think about the condition in terms of Black America today, 2007, does the condition of the Black male at the very top for you, or do you think that this was something just selected at random by the National Urban League?
Oh, I think the Urban League is being very intentional about our approach of addressing critical issues and finding solutions. And we're better to start.
Than with the Black male?
Than with the Black male.
What about the Black family? Do you think, again, the Black male and his relation to the Black family is critical at this point, 2007?
Well, I think that's just what we're doing. I think in our own Urban League way that we're acknowledging the Black male as head of our household, and that we're starting there first, because what impacts our Black male impacts the entire family. And we do know that Black women have always been supportive of supporting our community. And we do that through supporting our black male.
You know, I tell friends of mine and others that they should be active in church, that they should go to schools, that they should participate, so the young men can see that there are other positive things that African American men do other than sports.
When you hear about the state of black people in America, 2007, are you surprised that there's all this talk about the condition of black men?
No, I'm not surprised. I think there are a lot of issues and a lot of problems in our community. A lot of times you see African American young men who somehow are demoralized. We did a study a couple of years ago, and you asked young men about what do they define as success, and it's kind of amazing what they define as success. It says some of the obligatory things, but if you ask them about their own success, they sometimes don't have the same sense of success for themselves as they see for others.
But what are they saying?
And so they're saying, things like trying to stay alive, instead of saying something about getting a job and a career and running a company. They're more concerned about staying alive, being safe, getting away from drugs, getting out of the neighborhood that they live in.
Very low level.
Very low level expectations for themselves. And so, for us, we like to think that we need to work more to help build the self-esteem and expose young men to the opportunities that are out there, the broader chances that they have for success.
Why do you think that they have such a low level of success for themselves? Is there a disconnect there in the family or in the neighborhoods?
Well, I think sometimes, we're not accustomed to seeing, young men are not accustomed to seeing, being around a lot of young men in some cases. We still have too many single family households that are headed by women. And so a lot of young men don't see the same level of success in men that they should see. I tell friends of mine and others that they should be active in church, that they should go to schools, that they should participate, so the young men can see that there are other positive things that African American men do other than sports. And sports is a good teacher for young men. If sports can help young men learn about conflict resolutions. But you can also use sports to help young men with math. How do you do statistics and your shooting averages or your touchdown or your batting averages. So you can use sports in that regard. But I think there are other things that we have to do to help young men understand that it's all right to be smart. It's all right to be academic successful, that when someone is smart, sometimes you hear this negative stereotype that they're acting white. And my question when I go into schools and talk to young men is, how do you act black?
I hope you act smart. I mean, what does that say about us, right?
So you have to kind of dispel those myths, because not only do you have to do it with young people, sometimes we have to do it with the adults in our communities as well.
Now, you're in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Is the clientele that you're serving going to respond positively to this focus on black men?
It's our responsibility to work with those that we serve, not for them to come to us, but for us to go to them and provide the kind of services that they need and to make sure they understand what this is about. Sometimes if you don't know you're in trouble, somebody has to come along and tell you. If you are having a sort of a dysfunctional relationship with your community, then we need to get the community to come and talk to you and be a part of your life and show you something that is positive, that will indeed help you get from where you are to where you need to be.
And that's what you're hoping to do with this Urban League focus on the black male?
Absolutely. I mean, even as you listen to your university presidents, Howard University, for example, the number of black males in school has decreased incredibly. I mean, where are these young men? A friend of mine has a daughter who's 12 years old, and she says, "Daddy, who am I going to